The lights inside the America's Got Talent Theater glowed brighter than ever that night. But standing alone at the center of the massive stage was a small figure who seemed almost swallowed by its size. He was only 10 years old, a Filipino boy with neatly combed hair, worn shoes, and hands clasped tightly in front of him as if holding on to courage itself. The audience murmured softly, unsure of what to expect. Children had walked onto the stage before, but there was something different about him, something quiet, heavy, and sincere. When Simon Cowell leaned forward and asked his name, the boy answered politely, his accent gentle, his voice barely above a whisper. He spoke about coming from a modest neighborhood in the Philippines, where his parents worked long hours just to get by. Music, he said, was not just his dream, it was his escape. As he explained that he loved opera, a ripple of disbelief passed through the crowd. Opera? From a 10-year-old? Simon raised an eyebrow, clearly skeptical, while the other judges exchanged cautious glances. The boy smiled nervously, took a deep breath, and nodded when asked if he was ready. In that moment, no one, not the judges, not the audience, not even the cameras, could have imagined that history was about to be made. As the music began, the theater fell into an almost unnatural silence. The first note left the boy's mouth, and everything changed. It wasn't just good, it was extraordinary. His voice soared across the room with a richness, control, and emotional depth that felt impossible for someone his age. Gasps echoed from the audience as heads snapped up in shock. Simon Cowell's confident posture stiffened, his face frozen in disbelief. This was not a child pretending to sing opera. This was a real operatic voice, trained by passion rather than privilege. Each note was powerful yet delicate, filled with longing and hope, as if the boy were pouring his entire life story into the melody. The camera caught audience members wiping away tears, completely overwhelmed. Some stood unconsciously, hands covering their mouths. The judges sat motionless, as though afraid that even breathing might break the spell. The boy closed his eyes as he sang, fully immersed, his small frame trembling with emotion. It felt as though time itself had slowed, and for those few minutes, the world outside the theater simply ceased to exist. Halfway through the performance, something remarkable happened. Simon Cowell's expression softened. The famously tough judge, known for his brutal honesty and impossible standards, leaned back slowly, his eyes locked on the child before him. This wasn't just surprise anymore, it was respect. The boy's voice climbed higher, stronger, filling every corner of the hall with pure, unfiltered emotion. It was the kind of sound that made people remember why they fell in love with music in the first place. When the final note rang out, it lingered in the air like a heartbeat. For a split second, there was silence. Then the theater exploded. The audience leapt to their feet in a thunderous standing ovation, cheers echoing so loudly they shook the walls. The boy opened his eyes, startled, tears welling as he realized what was happening. He bowed awkwardly, overwhelmed, his hands shaking. On the judges' panel, one judge wiped their eyes openly, another shaking their head in disbelief. And Simon was smiling. As the applause continued, Simon stood up. That alone sent another wave of shock through the room. He walked closer to the edge of the judges' table, staring at the boy with an intensity that made the audience hold their breath once again. When he finally spoke, his voice was unusually calm, almost emotional. He admitted that he had doubted him from the start. That opera from a 10-year-old sounded unrealistic. But what he had just witnessed, Simon said, was one of the most astonishing auditions in the history of the show. He spoke about courage, about how hard it is for a child from a humble background to stand on a global stage and deliver something so pure and fearless. The boy listened quietly, tears streaming down his face now, as if Simon's words weighed more than the applause itself. The judges exchanged looks, sensing something monumental was about to happen. The crowd began to chant softly, anticipation building with every second. Then, without warning, Simon turned toward the golden buzzer. The theater erupted in screams even before he touched it. The boy's eyes widened in confusion, his mouth slightly open as if he couldn't quite understand what was happening. Simon paused for a dramatic moment, looking back at the child one last time, and said, "This is why this show exists." He pressed the buzzer. Golden confetti rained down from above, flooding the stage in a breathtaking cascade of light. The music swelled, the audience screamed, and the boy collapsed to his knees, overwhelmed by emotion. He covered his face, sobbing openly now, as the realization finally hit. His life had just changed forever. Judges rushed the stage, hugging him, while the crowd chanted his name. It was chaos, joy, and magic all wrapped into one unforgettable moment. As the golden confetti continued to fall, the camera zoomed in on the boy's face, tear-streaked, smiling, filled with disbelief and hope. From a small neighborhood in the Philippines to the biggest stage in the world, his journey had just begun. That night, America didn't just witness an incredible voice. It witnessed a dream taking flight. Social media would later explode. Critics would call it one of the greatest golden buzzer moments ever, and millions would replay the audition again and again. But in that moment, none of that mattered. All that mattered was a 10-year-old Filipino opera singer who proved that talent knows no age, no borders, and no limits. And even Simon Cowell was left speechless.